So now we are going to start with the very first chapter of class 10th physics, light, reflection and refraction. Now this name can make you better understand that what this chapter is about. Yes, this chapter is about light and the two main properties of light which are going to be discussed in this chapter are reflection and refraction. So in this chapter we are going to talk about a lot of mysterious and different phenomena like reflection, refraction, how a refraction happens through a glass slab, and we are going to talk about mirrors, spherical mirrors, then spherical lenses, and how images are formed by both of them, their various applications, and many more things are going to be taken up in this chapter. So before starting this chapter, let's try to understand what light is, right? What is light? I have written here that let's try to think about what light is. See, light is a form of energy. What it is a form of energy. So it's that form of energy which doesn't require any material medium for propagation. That is, that it doesn't require any medium in order to travel. Like we know that sound needs a material to travel. Sound needs air in order to travel or reach our ears, right? But this is not the case for light. Light doesn't depend upon any media. It is not dependent on any kind of media. It can travel by itself, so it does not require any material for its propagation. Another thing or another fact to know is that the speed with which light travels is a constant and can be measured, and we give this value as 3 into 10 raised to power 8 meter per second. So what is the speed of light? The velocity of light is 3 into 10 raised to power 8 meter per second, and we denote this speed of light by a small c, as you can see right here I've done. So this is the speed of light, 3 into 10 raised to power 8 meter per second. Now we've understood about what light is. Let's try to talk about a property that is exhibited by light, that is rectilinear propagation of light, right? See, in earlier times a lot of or many experiments were done, and scientists came to the conclusion that light seemed to travel in a straight line. It seemed to travel along a straight path. So they named that property as rectilinear propagation of light. So that is, if this is my ray of light, right, this is my light, it travels in a straight line, like you can see in this condition. So they named it as, they named this property as rectilinear propagation of light. Rectilinear propagation of light. So now we know that what light is, what are its common properties, and then what is this property of light called in which it travels along a straight path. So now let's talk about a phenomenon that is exhibited by light, that is reflection of light. We can often see this phenomenon in many cases. You might since we when we are even inside our home, we have some useful objects or some things that exhibit this property. Like you might have observed that when you stand in front of a mirror, you see an image of yourself in the mirror, right? So what is that phenomenon? How is it happening? That how can you see your image to be formed in front of the mirror? See, that is because of this property of reflection of light. We can also observe reflection of light in many other cases, like we can see an image being formed in the surface of a mirror or many other things. So this property is shown by a lot of objects even in our homes. So let's try to know what is the reflection of light. See, reflection of light is nothing but the bouncing back of light after striking a boundary of a media through which it cannot pass. For example, if this is my boundary and this is my ray of light, see, my ray of light is going to come towards this boundary, like it's going to strike this boundary, and at this point obviously it cannot pass through it. See, it isn't like it isn't that the ray of light cannot pass through boundary. It can, but we are going to discuss about it later on. But first of all, let's try to assume that this is my ray of light, it strikes the boundary and now it cannot pass through it. So what it does it that it simply bounces back. So this phenomenon of this process of bouncing back of light after striking a medium through which it cannot pass is known as reflection of light. So I hope that you now understand what reflection of light is, right? You can define it as the phenomenon in which light changes the direction of propagation, or light changes its direction of travel when it strikes a boundary between different media through which it cannot pass. This is the boundary, this is my boundary through which light cannot pass. So then it changes the direction of travel and just bounces back. So now we know that what reflection is. Let's talk about the types of reflection, right? We have regular reflection as well as irregular reflection. So what are the two different types of reflection? Regular and irregular reflection. Regular reflection is also known as specular reflection, while irregular is named as diffused. So now we know that we can observe reflection often occurring in many of the objects, like you know, like you are sitting inside a car and there's a rear view mirror. There's a mirror that is by your that's on the right side of your seat, right? That is your rear view mirror. It is used to view the traffic behind, right? Whatever the traffic is behind you, you used to wear. So we often come across many of the objects that use this property of light, which is reflection. That is the main reason that we are studying it. Why are we studying light and its properties? Because these properties are used by a lot of objects that are everywhere around you, that surround you. So in order to better know how these things operate, we try to learn this property. So now let's carry on with the types of reflection, regular and irregular. So what is this irregular reflection, right? What is this regular reflection? See, whenever light strikes a perfect or a smooth surface, smooth highly polished surface, see, so some kind of reflection occurs. That kind of reflection which occurs when light strikes a smooth and a highly smooth and polished surface or a water surface is known as a regular reflection. So regular reflection occurs when the light strikes a mirror, a water surface, or a highly polished object, like highly polished floor or highly polished mirror as well. So the reflection that is occurring in these kind of situation is a regular reflection. It is a very perfect mirror like reflection. So the image that we see when we stand in front of a plain mirror is basically a regular reflection, because it is very perfect reflection that is occurring right now. So you might know that you might have also observed that when you've come across a lake or a water body and there are a lot of mountains or trees surrounding that place, what will happen is that you will get an inverted image on the surface of water as well. So in that case as well, reflection is being occurred, right? So what happens is that when a ray of light comes and it strikes the water surface, so then it doesn't pass through it. Like, again, ideally it isn't that it cannot pass, it can pass, but some of the light is reflected as well. So let me say that, let us here consider the case that the ray of light strikes the mirror surface, sorry, the water surface, right? Ray of light is striking the water surface, and after that what happens is that this ray of light will be bounced back, right? Some part of light is going to be bounced back. So because of this, reflection has occurred, right? So because of this reflection, you get an inverted image of objects on the surface of the water. This is how it happens. So now we know that reflection in a mirror, water surface, or highly polished floor, or some other object is an example of regular reflection. Okay, simply it occurs simply like this. This is your smooth polished surface. You get a ray of light which is coming in this direction, and what happens is that it just bounces back like this. Okay, and whenever you need to describe the polished surface, you just do this. You will draw some lines on it which is indicating that this is a polished surface. Now let's talk about irregular reflection, right? So irregular reflection, as you can see, it is the reflection on a rough surface. Now reflection doesn't only occur on a smooth and polished surface. Yeah, it can occur on both. If it is occurring on a smooth and polished surface, then you say that that kind of reflection is regular. But if it is occurring on a rough surface, then the reflection is basically occurs randomly, very randomly reflection occurs. So this kind of reflection which occurs when light falls on a rough surface is known as irregular reflection. Its example is that you might have seen that when so you might have observed that when light falls on a what happens when light strikes a wall, right? Let me assume that there is a ray of light coming and it is striking a wall, right? This is my wall, and a ray of light is coming and then striking this wall, right? So what happens is that when my ray of light strikes this wall, what happens, that it's going to be like, it's light will what? It's going to be bounced back or reflected back in random directions, right? So in this case, the reflection that is occurring is very random, and it appears as if light is being scattered. And because of this reflection of light in random direction or scattering, what happens is that we see the wall. So uh, you know that whenever we enter a dim room, or whenever we enter a room that in which the light is switched off, we are unable to see anything, right? It is only when we switch on the light that we will be able to look at the various objects that are surrounding or that are present inside that room. So light is something which enables us to view things around us, which enables us to see the wonderful world around us. If there is no light, we won't be able to see the world. So it is actually because of this irregular reflection or diffuse reflection that we are able to see things, because it is only when light is scattered by an object that we see that object. So how can we see bed, or how can we see a sofa, or how can we see a table? It is because when light strikes the surface of these, no regular reflection occurs. The reflection occurring there is diffused, and we are able to then view that object. Okay, so we can say that in this case, the different portions of light which are striking the surface or different portions of the wall or surface reflect the light in different direction. And in that case, since the reflection is occurring in very random direction, different direction, we cannot find a definite image being formed. But what happens is that whatever surface is in front of us becomes visible to us. So whenever a ray of light strikes the wall, because reflection occurs in a very random direction, it is almost like if light is being scattered, we cannot obtain an image, but what we get is that a full view of that wall. So this is your types of reflection, regular and irregular reflection being discussed, right? I hope it is understood to you.